Hi, my ASP peeps. Welcome to Conversations in Focus, where we get to know each other and get to know the membership of the American Society of Photographers. I'm your host, Marisa Balletti-Lavoie, and today I have one of my most favoriteest creative photographic artists, and I admire her work and her undercover sass. I love our encounters in real life. So I had her in mind to come on this show. Miss Karen Doody.
Hey,
Woo!
everybody.
Welcome, welcome. So if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and letting us know where you're from and your PPA credentials.
Okay, so Karen Doody, and I am a master photographer, master wedding photographer, and photographic craftsman. And I live in Morehead City, North Carolina, which is the coast. And so I'm somewhere near Atlantic Beach and Emerald Isle, and we're all connected by bridges, but it's definitely coastal.
Wow, coastal North Carolina. Is it
Uh,
beautiful there?
yeah, it's really spectacular.
Yeah, you picked a
Not gonna
really,
lie, not gonna lie.
as far as a photographic artist, that's kind of a jackpot spot to live your life in. I'm super jelly.
Yeah, it's great. But you know how we always, wherever we are, we want something else. So the
Yeah,
mountains are always calling me.
but that's why you can
Go
go visit
figure.
them.
Yeah, yeah.
Go say hi to them. So when did you join the ASP and with which degree?
Okay. So in 2022, I got my master photographer and photo and wedding degree. So that's when I joined. So
At the
right
same
away.
time, your wedding one?
Yeah, I was one of
Wow.
the first, and it was my proudest moment. It really was.
That's wonderful. The wedding degree is fairly new to the PPA, and I don't believe a lot of people hold it.
Yeah, yeah, it's really great. We needed it, and I'm so proud to have it.
Well, congratulations. That's wonderful.
Hey,
We're happy to have you with us in the ASP. What is your current favorite genre of photography and what draws you to it?
wow, it's tough. I'm a wedding photographer by profession, but I am definitely a wildlife and nature photographer by passion. And in some ways, I think wedding and wildlife, it's kind of the same thing.
Pretty
It's,
much.
a lot of the same stuff goes on. But in general, I enjoy being outside. If I'm in nature, that's what speaks to me and draws me to it. So anything outside is where I get my creative inspiration for sure. Yeah.
I love that. I love picturing you at a wedding. I'm not sure if I even knew that part of you. I mean, you must be a blast, but also really good at like cracking the whip on them. What do you think?
I am. It's kind of nice to be an old broad in the industry because I really am not afraid of all the young girls and their attitudes and
Yeah.
their demands. I'm like, no, we're going to do it this way, and you'll be glad later. And so often, I'll have a bride come to me and say, "Oh, thank you, thank you. I really
Hmm.
appreciate that." And it's
Yeah.
weird because I always think of artists as being, type B people, but I'm very type A.
Hmm.
So I think it's weird to be a creative and be type A, but at weddings I am very type A.
And
So
that's what they need as far as a
yeah,
photographer at a wedding is somebody who is going to be assertive and tell them this is the job. This is how we're going to
right.
do it.
But I do think my clients love the fact that as a creative, I'm willing to completely punt. And
Hmm.
so we may have a plan, but if the sun's doing the right thing through the trees, they love it that I go, run, run
Yeah.
now. We have to get this shot. So there's a lot of play as well as that, structure for me.
Perfect mix as a wedding photographer. What everybody could dream to have show up is somebody who does it all. That's cool. That's
Yeah,
cool. I like you have both those sides. And the wildlife comparison is
yeah, it's
straight
accurate.
dead on.
It's so true.
100% right. Because with all those wildlife running around the whole day of a wedding, you never know what they're going to do.
No, no,
Mhm.
no. It's crazy. It's crazy. I love it. It's fun, but it's exhausting. It's
Yeah, it is a lot of how do you deal with that energy exchange?
um, it is completely 100% draining for me. I'm not going to lie.
Hmm.
And it almost always has been, even though now I'm older, I can use that excuse, but it still is. I feel like I'm just emptying everything I have to give them the best I can.
Hmm.
And and that's creatively too. I want to give them something that their friends and family look at it and go, oh my gosh, I've never seen anything like that, or oh, that's so great. And so at the end of the day, I'm wiped out. And typically on a Sunday after a Saturday wedding, I have what I call a wedding hangover.
Hmm.
And it's just like the old college hangovers. I mean, I'm in my pajamas all day. I'm feeding and rehydrating and, you know, sitting around watching bad TV until
Hmm.
I can come back around and
Yeah,
recover.
you have to re-harness all that energy back in
Yeah. Yeah.
after dispersing it. Well, that's awesome. I love that you have a way to cope with it.
I
So
don't
what
know what
first,
you'd do if you didn't.
no, what first inspired you to become a photographer and how has your creative journey evolved since then?
Oh, that's a bit of a story.
Okay, I'm in.
Um, okay. So I was a fine art major in college and I had a photo minor. And I can't even believe my parents let me do that. I mean, because I kept hearing that, what's she going to do? What's she going to do?
Yeah, for a real job.
Their idea was, that I would end up at Disney World doing caricatures on the sidewalk. I mean, that's what they thought was
It's
going
kind
to
of fun.
happen. Right. And I got a job as a graphic designer. So I worked in publishing and that kind of thing. And it was great. But I just put my camera down. It wasn't a part of that. The need to create was filled with the graphics part of it for me. So I didn't think about the camera. And then my husband and I decided to move to Mexico, where we lived for 20 years. And we had a dive shop and we were scuba divers. And I started photographing underwater, and that reconnected me. I never saw it coming. It was not a plan. My husband bought an underwater camera and said, here. And I'm like, So I was pretty much self-taught in underwater photography, but I loved it. I loved it. So for years I did that and had some commercial success. So I was like, wow, this is great, but I really can't make a living at underwater photography. It wasn't that much success. Anyway, so I had a diver friend getting married and they didn't have 2 cents and they're like, oh, please photograph our wedding. I'm like, oh, no, 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 no. And at that point, I honestly sort of thought that wedding photography was lowbrow. It's a wedding photographer, not a real photographer. Photographer. So I declined and declined, and they were pitiful. So I finally said, okay, but you have to know, full disclosure, I have no idea what I'm doing, none. But I did go back to my computer and I researched and I read and I found wedding photographers that I loved. And I studied what they did and I read about what was expected for a full day of wedding photography. And I shot it. I was scared out of my mind, but I shot it. And I enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I charged them a whole $600 and I felt rich. So then the next one that asked me, I said, well, let's just see what happens. I charged them $1,500. They paid it. I was like, what?
Yeah.
Okay, I found out what I'm going to do. And so it took off from there. And I built a really good wedding business. But as a creative, recently, it has not been as fulfilling to me. I've just reconnected with that fine arts that, I started with. And now I want to do something different. And that's what led me back outside.
Mhm.
And so, like I said, I make a living as a wedding photographer and I feed my soul with whatever's outside.
Well,
Yeah.
that's beautiful. I do follow your work and I love what you've been up to recently.
Me too.
Yeah,
Marisa, me too. I
and
love
that
it.
and everything you just said makes complete sense in that work that you've been up to recently. It's
Thanks.
beautiful. Thank you. So, what is the most rewarding aspect of becoming an ASP member?
Okay, I'm going to say this is going to sound like I am really sucking up, but I'm not. But I am a print comp junkie. I will say that. And when I started in print competition and I looked at ASP work, I knew I wanted to be a part of that group. I was so inspired by what I was seeing. And it was much of it outside the box. And yet some of it was super technical and literal. And I loved that too. There was so much there. But I also loved that the people, the members, are so willing to share knowledge. They lift each other up in ways that is not always the case in other, organizations. They lift each other up, and there's always something fun going on. There is never a dull moment, and I love that. And you're a big part of that, and so I thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. And you were right about our membership. It's the camaraderie in the ASP is unlike any organization I've ever
I
belonged
agree.
to. And I guess it does come with that everybody in the organization is overachievers.
Maybe
All,
that's it.
yeah, we all are pursuing a higher place in the
Mhm.
photography industry, and also just a general sense of that everybody in it seems to know that with each other we can grow stronger. So that's wonderful to hear
Yeah.
that. Thank you. I love the ASP. I sold my soul to them day one.
Me too. Me too. The
Yeah.
second I could be a member, I was in.
Yes. Thank you. We appreciate it. They made me social media before I even had a degree.
Well, you got to get the talent where you can get it.
By the time I got to the first party, I felt like I was hosting it. It's like, guys,
You
are
probably were.
I know I was. I host them all. Are do you have any current projects or anything that you're working on you'd like to share with our peeps?
Well, yeah, it's sort of an extension of what we were talking about before. Um, I feel like now that I have the degrees that I wanted, and that I feel more confident in my ability to experiment, and
Hmm.
that's what I'm doing now. I am trying crazy stuff. So if I put it in print comp and it gets a 77, I'm so grateful that I have the confidence in my own uh, artistic, I don't know, needs or desires, that I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
But I love having the ability to put stuff in front of people who I feel like can give me good feedback.
Hmm.
So like I said, I'm trying crazy things right now. Uh, I just want to see, well, what do you think if I try that? Or what does that look like? And I mean, I was out trimming my shrubs this morning and I found some dead plant and I'm like staring at it and going, oh, so now in my living room, I've got most of the bushes done, but not all of them.
Yeah.
It's some setup for some crazy dead plant because I have to stop right now and
Yes.
see what I can turn that into. So that's kind of where I am. I'm just working outside the box, trying to be really creative and maybe toward the fine art abstract. I would say that's where I am now, fine art abstracts.
That's so cool and such a cool place to be in, especially with what you said about playing things in competition, just to release the idea as an artist and get the critique from people that you value their opinions and what they have to say about it. The first thing I ever had merit high was the craziest thing, and I had this idea stuck in my head, and it's like, I'm just going to do it, and I'm just going to put it in front of them. And while it was being judged, it was like the most nerve-wracking. Then it come out 99, and it's like, okay, now I'm gonna go for it, and it really takes, and that some things absolutely hilarious. I remember one thing I would play, I would, print competition, because you could play all over, is really nice if you have something that you want feedback from. So I put something in like Kansas, and I remember they said, this is on knowing, this is a lesson in knowing the area you're putting something into, because they didn't get it at all. And that was one of
Uh-huh.
the things the panel said, is like, know your audience. And
Uh-huh.
it's the most valuable tool as artists. And also, like, I love when I crash and burn. I feel like it hurts so good.
I agree. You're
Yeah.
right. But if you're just starting out and you don't have your degrees, those are all painful. They're really
Oh yeah.
painful when you're trying to. But having that freedom to be able, I love what you said. Oh my gosh, release the idea.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's it. That's
It is.
100%
You've
it.
released it, and not only, and the benefit of our community is you can release it to really trustworthy minds to receive it. And
Hmm.
I've said to TJ, I run into frustration about my pieces now, because the people that I really would love to critique it, there's a good chance they'll show up and the judges. And so
Hmm.
I'll run into roadblocks, and it's like, but they're kind, I'm not creating for minds like that, but I am. Their minds are the ones that receive what I'm doing the best. So it's like, who can I? So that's where I'll play around the
Uh-huh.
country and release that and take in what they have to say about it. Is such a cool experience.
I think too that I will because when you know the judges, you know which ones are more receptive to creative, odd, you can't put your finger on it, what the heck's going on here kind of stuff, and
Yeah.
the ones who are far more literal and technical.
Hmm.
And so I will often put things that I know may be really kind of sketchy. I'll put them in front of my creative judges,
Hmm.
and typically they're well received. And then I'll put them in front of those others, the harder judges, and see if do they flip? Do they go, oh wow, this is really something, or do they kind of stand by, their thoughts and visions of what good photography should be. And I learned so much from both of those.
Hmm.
So I'll put them in front of both and choose that, and then try to either make it work so that it works for both sets, or I'll hang it on my wall and say, oh, I just love it exactly the way it is. And, it's okay. I can please myself now. And that makes
Yeah.
me happy too.
Yeah. You have the freedom
Yeah.
to experiment like that. That's such a great place to be. It's so cool. The first I got, before everything changed, I got a Gia nomination when I got to go up on the stage, and I wore a giant crown. I was unhinged.
Yeah, I
But
like to hear what would be like to hear.
it was with an album, but the whole
Oh
album
my
was art pieces. So it basically, like, it was the guide into the morph into the final piece. And it went up in front of the album panel, which was all portrait judges. And it just was the most quiet while they flipped through this, because it was the IPC where you could watch. And I remember it took them 10 minutes. It was just dead air, quiet. And they got to the end, and I hear one of the judges that is total portrait judges goes, "That was cool." I was like, "Oh man."
It didn't matter what happened after that, really. I mean,
Yeah, so
yeah.
you're right about how if it's a strong piece, it's going to speak to every aspect, and a judge that is doing the competition, they're trained to really look at it in all ways. But then the artist, round two ASP, that the artist panel, that was Bob Coates, Ella, Tom Rouse, Brian Welsh, every piece that came up, I had heart palpitations for the maker because it's just they were such a well-equipped art panel
Yeah.
that I
Yeah.
feel that if you had a piece in that and they felt strongly about it, any one of those judges felt strongly about it, then you really got like the most bang for your buck in that competition to hear from those makers because that was like the
Yeah.
chef's kiss of art
Agree.
panel.
Agree.
Oh, the heart palpitations that day.
Mhm.
Okay, Karen, you're doing great, by the way. I'm really proud of you. So, where can our peeps find you online and connect with you and be friends?
Okay. So I'm on Facebook a lot. Karen Doody Photography is where I put most of my wedding stuff. Of course, if you just want to be my pal, you can just go to Karen Doody.
Send a little
And then
friend
you can
request.
learn about all the other crazy stuff I do. And then I do have the Wild Duty. You know, if you have a last name like Duty,
This
you
is my
gotta
favorite, my
you
favorite
just gotta
title
roll
ever.
with it. Roll with it. It's so funny because everybody tries to turn it into anything but duty.
Yeah,
So, they try to make it Duty or,
yep.
whatever. Anyway, it's Doody, and it's a good Irish name.
Hmm.
But it's the Wild Duty, and that's where I put a lot of my wildlife and nature stuff. But it ends up all over Facebook and different places. And then, of course, I have my websites, which, like many of us, are. I
Always
just
been
put them
working on
up, and then annually I say, maybe I'll add a picture.
it.
And there's that. And then Instagram, which I'm terrible at. And I have little spurts of yes and no, but I'm all there. I'm all
Perfect. Well, I
Yeah.
hope you get lots of new fans and friends because
Thanks.
you're awesome. And I love the Wild Duty. I think that is one of the most brilliant names ever. And it's like as far as marketing standpoint, I'd just love to market that thing, you know.
I know. I know. For the longest time, I just wring my hands, especially even as a wedding photographer. I kept thinking, do I really want Karen Doody? Is anybody going to hire a wedding photographer whose last name is Doody? I mean, what? But it works because people do not forget it. Thank
Yeah,
you,
it's
Mike
very
Doody, for that
memorable.
last name. So,
Very memorable. Well, I love you, Karen Duty. I think you're
thank
fabulous.
you.
Since
Back
the
at you.
first minute I laid eyes on you, I knew I loved
Well,
you.
I want to be you, so there.
You are. You're a different version. You're the Karen Duty version of me. Well, thank you for being on my program and
Thanks for asking me.
to
I'm honored.
oh, well, I love you. Our ASP peeps, I hope you enjoyed getting to know Karen a bit more. And if you'd like to be on Conversations in Focus, send me a message and we'll make it happen. Goodbye, our
See
people.
you at
See
Imaging.
you at Imaging USA.